The views expressed on the following program are those of the host, guests, and callers. They do not reflect the views of this service, streaming service, or channel, or whatever you want to call it, folks. Welcome to our program. This week, we have Raven Starr join us. Uh, a great, a great author. She's working on a vampire novel now. So, welcome, Raven.
Thank you so much. I want to say straight off, you guys, that I went to the dentist today, so if I sound crazy, it's because my mouth hurts.
All right. You went to
But
the
I appreciate
dentist.
being here. This is really cool.
Well, I have a horrible memory for you. This is the one thing I don't get about the dentist. Why do they come in with the needle and they place the needle behind your head, just almost eye level, and then they walk away for a little while, and then they come back and they hit you with a Novocaine needle? Why do they put that needle right in the back of your head,
I have no idea.
eye level? Is it something that dentists on purposely do just to frustrate you, to stress you out for a laugh or something? Then they walk away like they're laughing, like something's happening.
Yeah, it was crazy. I don't know why they do that.
What
All I
tooth?
know is that they took it out, and it felt like they were touching the inside of my brain.
What tooth did they take out?
Oh, it was one of my wisdom teeth.
So you're less wiser now.
Yeah, I am kind of dumb.
Yeah, yeah. Then the Novocaine in the mouth starts making your mouth feel funny, and then your tongue goes numb, and then you feel.
It's like they didn't even do all that. I was wondering why my lips don't feel numb, but they did. I've never had like stitches in my mouth before, so now I have like a couple sutures in there, and it's a funny feeling. To be honest, it's a really funny feeling.
Yeah, it's. I don't know how to explain the feeling. I don't know. But anyways, let's. How and why did you get into this field of being an author?
Honestly, I started out with poetry. Um, I I guess the writer in me has always been there, but I was a poet first. And I wrote a poem called The Other Side after my mother passed away. And I submitted it to this poetry place, and yeah, and they published it. It's in the UK. It's called Twilight. It's, just little books of poetry and things like that. And then I branched off. I did write two plays when I was younger. I wrote two plays as well. And I really thought I was going to be like an actress because that was my goal. And writing just helped me connect more with my emotions. And it was pretty funny. I looked at somebody else's work, they sent it to me. And I was like, you know what? After I read their book, I was like, you know what? I can do that. And that's how it started.
Now, you as an author, um, it's fascinating. I've never written a book, but what you got when you started with poetry, what uh, does that help with your stories? Because what I found out is poetry is the other basically a story without prose.
Yeah, yeah.
So you know how to write the story, and the Odyssey is a poem. If everybody doesn't realize that, the Odyssey, um, the
It
Greek
is a
Greek legend Odyssey is a poem. Now, do you find doing poetry and stories easier now that you did poetry, or do you find it to be difficult, or how was that transition for you?
Um, hmm. I would say that it helps a little bit, but poetry is different than just straight out writing a novel. You have to when you're writing a novel, you have to involved in the characters and the scene set, and you have to get the vibe right. But with poetry, it's pure emotion. it's just pure emotion, and I don't have to worry about anything else. I just let those words flow.
Now, when you did the stuff for the stuff of the whatever you call it when you publish it or get it through, that's my problem. I can never find somebody to get it to the material, to get it to the customers, to get it to um, out there. Is
The
it
best thing to do nowadays, when I first started writing years ago, to be an indie author, an independent author, was frowned upon. You really had to go traditional. And now everything is so digital that being a independent author, you have so much free range of everything. And if you really want to, get your book out there, go to Amazon, and they have their own little publishing thing. A lot of authors are doing it. My books are all published that way.
is it easy easier to do the other way, the old fashioned, or there's a lot of other things out there? But what I'm saying is it easier to publish poetry? Is it easier to do a story, a novel? Or like you just
If
said,
you're
it
gonna
doesn't matter
publish,
anymore.
right, exactly. When you're writing, it's like I said, it's just pure emotion that comes. Um, but when you're really to a novel, it takes so much more um, than just a pure, couple sentences worth of prose. But I find that being kind of like an indie author, I can't say kind of, I am. Being an indie author, I find that it's easier to get my work out there because traditional, you have to find somebody that really into stick their neck out. That's pretty hard, and it's devastating. Being a writer, you have to have a thick skin. You really do, because you get so many no's, so many rejection letters, and it eats.
Well, let's for our audience, because I understand it to probably about 25%. I don't know, but let's discuss what you have to do. The first part is you got all this written material, which I think it's very sad that it's hard to get out there because it's like music. There's a lot of people out there with a lot of good talents. What do you need to do to get that from your computer, paper, whatever you want to talk about, whatever it is that you're talking this story or idea out? What is the process to get it into that person's hand at the bookstore or now? I mean, I say bookstore because I'm kind of old fashioned, but what's the process that you have to go through? And like you were just saying, it's hard to do and not sometimes beneficial and sometimes a happy experience. But what is that experience to get me or the listeners today a piece of material?
I think, well, every writer has their own way of setting things up. You mentioned that I was working on a vampire. I am working on a vampire shifter story. And for me personally, if I don't have the title, I can't write. I've tried, I just couldn't do it. And you saw on my post where I was, asking some advice about titles and things like that. But for me, after I get the title and it's written, then what I do, I kind of like take a break, 2 days, go back into it, read it again, edit it. I would love to find an editor that's not gonna, charge me an arm and a leg and some toes, because, you really do need somebody else to go over your work like that. And then once it's done, once you get the cover, and that's another bill. If you don't really know how to do it by yourself, then you have to pay for it. Because a cover, it has to say something. It has to stop that reader. There are a whole lot of books over there, and your cover has got to reach out and say, hey, pick me up. You want to read me? So Once all that, yeah, I upload everything onto Amazon and dun, 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 here I am.
Now, when you say you upload everything, you actually have to take. Now, I don't know if you do your cover art yourself, but you have to take the cover art. You have to take the story or the ideas or the
Hmm.
post. They do it all. Literally, they just all. Or do you have to do something? I took mine.
No, no, it's really, really simple. It really is.
Okay.
Once you have your story or whatever, it's
Hmm.
saved on like a document.
Yeah.
You go over there to the KDP and you upload your document. If you have a cover, they even help you. They have like their own little templates where you can use those for covers. And when you're finished, it takes you step by step by step and everything you want to do. And after that, like 3 days later, your book is live.
So now, how much money do you make? I want to go into your regular personal financial details. So let's just say I write a book. I write some of my Dungeons and Dragons adventures into stories, which, by the way, folks, that's how the Dragonlance and Forgotten Realms series came out. If you're familiar with that, folks, and you're into the fantasy genre, say I write some of these stories and our adventures out, and so put them up there. How much am I making on this book? Because some of these books cost like $35. Is that because you're not making any money and they want to put some money on it, or is it like a Lyft and Uber where the driver's not making that full $12 that your ride was? They're making 4 to 6. Um, or is it where you can make a lot of doing this? Because I would imagine all that printing, all that process, all that stuff that you have to do to print it. Because I printed one when I was in high school, and the print it costed me $30 to print this thing. Um, so how much do you make and how much is this? And I'm asking for our listeners so that they can get an idea of how much hard work an author really has to go through to get that story in their hands.
Hmm. Um, like I said, it's expensive. I'm not gonna. If you don't have a cover and you can't make a cover, you have to go out and find someone that is willing to do the cover. A cover just for an ebook, $75 and up, so it's expensive. And the editing, sometimes they edit page, sometimes they edit per word, and that's another bill, so it's not. I didn't get into writing to make $1 million. That's just. I mean, I'd love to make $1 million, but I don't make $1 million now. But it is a lot to have, especially like I said, if you don't know anything about putting your book up there, you really have to start speaking to some authors. A lot of authors help. They if you have a question, they answer. Um, and that's really good. That's really good because I can talk to someone else who she's out there. She's got her stuff together, and her books are fire. Her name is Sonia B, and she's whew, she's amazing. So she's kind of like ahead of the game for me. So if I speak with her, I ask her questions and she always comes back and she tells me, honestly, this and this is what you do that. Yeah, I would speak to some authors and get it into your head what you want to see on the page. And then don't let anything stop you once you're writing, because like I said, being an author, it's a thick skin. But yeah, just write. Do when you want to get your book out, it's you got to keep going for it. You have to keep going for
Now,
it.
what made you get into the genre you are in of the paranormal arc? I guess fiction is what it's called, of vampires. What got interested in that
I can't
versus
hear
something
you.
else?
I don't know if you're talking to me right now.
Yeah, I am. Can you hear me better now?
Okay, I can hear you right now. Yes.
All right. What is what is better? and or more so to do? Is it better to do writing and poetry? And the second part of this is, from that, what got you into the thing that you got into of the dark fiction, I guess it's called, of vampires and the other stories? What got?
I love horror. And because when I first came out, be the next Stephen King, to be honest. That's my goal.
That's Stephen King. Now, I don't know if the listeners are telling us they can't hear us in our chat rooms. My thing is fine. But what you were saying is you like horror. What part of horror do you like? Do you like versus something else?
Oh, I love horror, period. I love horror. I am in the middle right now of writing my zombie apocalypse novel. And I just like it. I like to be scared. I like to scare people. So yeah, horror that for me. I still do romance. You know, my books are full of love and romance too, but it's also now really focused in the dark fiction genre because that's where my heart is really. And you have to write what's on your heart. You know, I was gonna say that word, but you can't skimp on it. You know, you have to go for what you feel.
Now, when you say you have to go for what you feel, what does that mean for our audience now? For me, I know what it is. I do write Dungeons and Dragons stories. I am
Yes,
a
we're gonna play
prolific
some D&D.
I am a prolific Dungeons and Dragons player. Those people that don't write, for those people who have the, I don't know what you call it. I don't know if it's called or a gift or if it is just something that your mind has to do. If you're a writer, you have to have, it's just like an auto mechanic. You got to have that urge to do the job.
Absolutely.
Now, I don't write. I mean, I could take my stuff and write something. I could take my Vampire the Masquerade games, make them into something. But get what's his name? The guy that made Game of Thrones, Ice and Fire, is getting. I understand he has. He gets a block, as in, I don't know if it's your mind's blocked or your idea system is blocked. I get that way. So I always have something in my head that I can redo. And I know part of story writing for the audience is not redoing it. If you're an author, you're not going to rewrite your story, change the.
Tens of times. You rewrite everything. You know, once my book is done, I take 2 days to go back through it again.
No,
You
but
know,
what I'm talking about is the idea. You don't, as a writer, write, let's say, the vampire story, and then you do the same story with different characters, only they drive a van instead of a car this time, in a bar instead of a diner this time. Uh, you actually have a different story to captivate the audience. You have to have the characters do different stuff. In Dungeons and Dragons, I can have you do the same thing over and over and over and over, and we just have fun doing it. So just writing the same thing over again with different characters, and maybe you take a different turn in a dungeon. You fight a different monster. But when you're writing a story, you have to keep this going. How do you, as an author, keep the mindset to keep going without being stuck? Stephen King suffered it. The guy that did Ice and Fire suffered it. I don't know if the writer of Harry Potter suffered it. I don't know too much about her. But I remember Stephen King doing an interview where he said, well, I didn't have any more ideas, and he came up with something different to do, and it just wasn't successful, but he made it through. One of those times was when he was on that vacation at that hotel, which I forget the name of the movie now. It's
The Shining.
The Shining. That became a hit, a really big thing for him. But at the time, the
He was going
writers,
through writer's block.
the writer's block is what was frustrating. How
Yeah,
do
it
you
happens.
not do that?
There's no not doing that. I don't know of a writer personally
Who has not suffered writer's block. It just happens. And that to take those couple of days. I finish something and I have to take a couple of days to recharge, reboot, and then it can be.
Now, when you say repetitious, we do mean it's just over and over and over again. Now, do you keep the stories? Do you keep the unnecessary stuff that you do, or do you get rid of it?
once you reread it, you get rid of a lot of junk. You know,
No,
you just get rid of a lot. I know that sometimes when I read books, there's too much description. I don't want to know the 10 different hues of grass, and I want you to give me the meat of the story. That's what I want.
Well, what I'm talking about is, do you keep the bad? So if you're writing, if
No,
I'm
I
writing,
don't. You have to trash it.
you have to throw because I keep all my bad stuff. And if something didn't happen right, or I didn't like, or the monsters weren't right, I'll stick it in something else. If the vampire's not right for Dungeons and Dragons, it's right for the Vampire the Masquerade game. If
100%, yeah.
if it's not right for the fiction Wild West story we're working on, I will stick something else in the fantasy game we're playing. But can you do that as an author where you write something and you're like, oh, I just spent a whole hour, I got, 25 pages. You know what? That's going in another story.
You can. Absolutely. Absolutely, you can. I mean, yeah, you can. You can, totally. I don't do it often because I'm dyslexic, so it
Hmm?
takes a while for me. I have to make sure that I'm reading it correctly, and that's why I go over the story so many different times. But sometimes when I'm writing, I will take a chunk out of something else that I really like, and I'll put it to the side. And then when I'm done, I'll figure out where that chunk of story begins, or where I can put it in.
Okay. Now, for everybody that's listening tonight, we're going to open up the phone lines. I'm sure you've told a lot of people. What we're going to do is we're going to open up the phone line, and as always, I take the callers as they come in. So, folks, if you're on the line and you're in the queue, or whatever it is, stay there. Don't hang up. Um, and please be there when we call upon you. Don't be like last week where, we call upon you and you're just dilly dallying. The number to call is 607 238 3816. My email is cwlawrence01 at gmail.com. My website, www.iambrotherwade.com. Go ahead and plug some of your novels. Let's talk about the names of these things and what they're about. But I want the audience to have a mystery. So, what about, as in, what is the main thing? The thing that you would see on the back of the cover?
Well, I just finished a series called the Dark World series, and that was fun. That was really fun. I got to dabble a little bit.
The Blood Countess is out right now. I think, yeah, it just was live last week. So if you guys want to check it out, I'm on Amazon, Raven Starr. I have like a lot of books, you guys, but I'm really here to plug the Dark World series because I got an email from a reader, and she was reading the book, and she was like, I just want to let you know that I cried when Herman died. And I was so happy about that because sometimes you don't get that rapport with your readers and say, oh, you made me. that's the sugar right there. That's what it's all about. And I'm glad she cried at that part because I cried when I wrote it. So to be able to have that emotion felt in a reader is absolutely fantastic, and I love it.
Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to open up the phone lines. We have a caller program. Hello? Hello? Let's see if we. Are you there?
I can't hear
Hi.
anything.
You can't hear anything? Let's see if we can get that. Now, can you hear him? Go ahead, caller. You're on.
I know, but I can't. Can they hear me?
Hear you. I can
Now,
hear you.
you know.
Okay, sweet. Well, what I would like to know is what a freelance author like yourself are for writing somebody else's they're in a block.
Wow. That's a good question. Nobody's ever asked me that before. I do write personal stories, but if I'm doing a personal story, I don't charge anything for that. I just write it because it's fun.
I see. Okay, so partner up with people to write stories as well, or you're just a solo enterprise?
I tried to write with another author, and that's very different because you're not always on the same wavelength, you know?
Creative, like as a bouncing board when they are like creatively blocked, like you were saying.
Oh, absolutely. It helps a lot to be able to have that banter back and forth to break that writer's block. Because if you don't have some kind of exercise that you can say, you know what, how does this sound? And you can, throw those ideas back and forth. Writer's block is not fun. And if you don't have
No, it's not.
anybody to help you through it, it can last for a while.
Well, yeah. Personally, I've been. I'm a poet. I write lyrical poetry, and I have not been able to express myself in that way for years now. It's been a long time, and I'm just looking forward to. I'm feeling a little creative. Like recently, there's been ideas in the back of my mind. I don't know if you as a writer do this, but when I feel like writing something, a sentence will appear in my mind, and I just stash it for later, and then I build off of those one or two sentences that I wanted to use, and then the whole thing just comes out.
Yeah, I can totally understand that. If I don't have a title, I cannot write that story.
Right.
I just can't. And that's something that I just learned about myself because I was struggling so hard. Like, I have the story. I know the story. I can't put a title to it and then lock it in. My brain just doesn't function properly.
Correct.
But you know what? If you want, send me a request here on Facebook, and I have a group where we can just chat, you and I. So, because you have to, well, you don't have to, but I like it better. That's when I am writing. And if somebody has a question, I feel like, yeah, why can't I answer that? So if you want to throw ideas around.
Oh, sounds good. Thank you. I appreciate that. I have another question. As a horror fiction, mind you, I am the greatest fan you ever, ask me anything, okay? I love Stephen King, and I just think as a horror fiction writer, how do you feel about the possibility of some of the things that you may be writing about actually existing in the realm of reality as we know it? Because you're creating it, because of the fact that you're writing it out, you're bringing it forth.
question. You got me thinking now. I love it though. I kind of like write things. I don't write about guns. You know, you won't really read a story where I'm doing anything about shooting and things like that. I like the dark fiction better because I can jump outside the realm of reality and just indulge in my crazy brain. I would hate to have something that I wrote kind of like be misconstrued in a way where it is in reality.
Correct.
But vampires are real. You do realize that.
Oh, absolutely. Don't don't get me started. That's a whole nother podcast. I believe in
Well, you have to watch our podcast with Audrey on that. We did one, and she came on as a guest. And she's got to come out there, Audrey. You got to come on again. But if you go up to my website, you can see her time on the show. It was great. She came on twice. All right, caller. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Now what I don't see as the difference between the horror and the fantasy here, folks, that I don't understand.
I think it's the same.
Well, what I'm trying to say is I don't write. If it's in a castle or if a subway, if it's a western town or if it's a big city, I don't see the difference in any of that stuff. I really don't. I don't see when I write what the difference is. Now, I can put it in my head. The difference between the knights in shining of the versus the high-tech superhero, laser shooting heroes of the space genre. But in my mind, it's all the same. The story is the same. How do you differentiate a story versus another story? That's the hardest thing I have. When I write stuff for the Dungeons and Dragons, for the GURPS, for the Vampire the Masquerade, a lot of times I find myself saying, this is the same story, different characters, and modern or medieval setting. How do you differentiate the settings of the stories?
Because they're not all the same story. See, when you're writing your D&D, it's just like I said, it's repetition. You can do the same thing. I would just write the same thing. You can't go anywhere with that. You know what I mean? There's nowhere that you can go if all of the stories are the same. Readers get bored.
Yeah.
And there's not really a storyline out there that hasn't been touched by some kind of author, writer. So what you have to do is you have to make it different within yourself. Everybody does vampires, but what did Anne Rice do? Sexy vampires, you know what I mean?
I don't quite think they're sexy. I think they were very powerful, but I don't.
Well, I mean, think about Nosferatu, too. That was a creepy dude. I mean, just have him evolve from that to Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Wasn't Max Schreck the character?
That's the beginning of, hey man, he's kind of cute and he can kill you.
Wasn't Max Schreck the guy that did that character?
Which one, Nosferatu?
Yeah.
I have no.
And it was rumored that
was.
the rumor of Nosferatu is that he couldn't get the name like it is today in mainstream. I could say the word Dracula right now on this program, something Dracula, and I have no consequence. Back then, if he named that Dracula, he would have been sued and taken right out of the film industry. So he second thing of a vampire, which is a Nosferatu in Europe. They call vampires Nosferatu.
Yeah.
So he named vampire.
Yeah.
And I find some of the stories around that movie very unique. And I also find that when Bela Lugosi did Dracula, it did not follow Bram Stoker's original.
No, it did not. It was different.
Because in the original movie, like, I forget the one that is the recent one, it's named Dracula. I forgot who starred in it. The girl that starred in it. I keep saying the name Ryder. I think maybe it was her last name. But that one followed it somewhat closely, and nobody has followed it to a T of what the original Bram Stoker was, because they forget Bram Stoker's Dracula came out in the sunlight. The vampire curse was not a night creature; it was an evil creature.
Right, because he was, I can't say stalking, but he was kind of following Winona Ryder around.
Yeah.
And that's what I loved. And that's the difference. Nosferatu couldn't go outside, so the evolution of the vampire, like Blade could go outside. You know what I mean?
Blade was a
half human. He could go outside.
Blade was a dampier. He wasn't a vampire.
Right.
And if you get into this genre of the vampire community, there's thousands, like you said, of stories and thousands of things. You can just pick pieces here. It's like decorating a cake. How many cakes have been copied?
Right.
But if you put the rose in the corner and you color it blue, and the other guy colors it yellow, the other purple, and they do those little U-shaped cakes, has that on there. What makes you buy the other one? It has your favorite color. It has the marble cake instead of vanilla or chocolate. It has topping and cream topping. But every single one looks the same. Every single one's made in the same pan, and everybody's made from the same recipe. Nothing's different in that freezer. To me, sometimes I think of that of stories like Stephen King. I'm not saying his stories are bad, but to me, horror is always the same thing. Somebody is going to die. Somebody's going to have something horrible happen to them. And somewhere in there, there's going to be blood. And somewhere in there, it's going to reflect some murder or some real psycho killer's bad actions. Fantasy's all the same. Everybody's going to sword fight. Everybody's going to be a hero. Everybody's going to pick up a shield and defend themselves. However, the story. What does that guy do? How high does he jump? What does he look like? It's different. What does the vampire, like in Anne Rice's Vampire, what did Lestat do that Nosferatu couldn't? What did Nosferatu do that Lestat never thought of doing or didn't know about? And the thing about writing a story for me is, one, I can't get it out there. For two, you're lucky. You can pick a title. I can't. I can't have a title and start with a title. I have to start with a story, and then God knows what the title's going to be. And I also can't keep going. Once I write something, I'm done. I wrote 2 stories in high school, and I'm done. They're done. The story's done. One was a 125-page story, which my English teacher said it was so bad and so much material in it. She said, I threw it down after the 10th page and said, why did you do this? And the other story, the same English teacher looked at me and said, that was a sick story. You're not writing anything more in this class. And I was exempt from writing anything because I disgusted her, which I was pretty lucky for doing that. But this leads to the next thing about writing stories is, how do you come up with something new that's going to captivate an audience? And when I say this, I'm thinking of Ice and Fire. He's done everything. How do you keep those characters going? How do you not have a one thing where the character is finished in the reader's mind?
Well, that's the difference. A single book, you can do that. Within this series, I had to keep the characters from beginning to the end of it, and I kind of like it. I like it, but I like just ending the story too. I like to take the characters. Like I said, there's nothing written that has not already been written. So you just have to take vampires. You take that vampire and you put your own spin on it, and you're hoping that that spin lets you stand out among thousands of books that line the shelves, that are in the libraries, that are online. That's what it is. You have to put a spin on it to where somebody really wants to pick it up and read it. And that's not always an easy thing. It's not always easy. Like, I can't understand how you can write without a title. But all writers are different. We all have our quirks, and some friends have to listen to music. If they don't listen to a certain type of music, they can't write. I too sometimes, I have my own little quirks of what I need to be able to focus.
Well, I see it. You said about music is, I like a type of music. My fiance finds it very, very, disturbing. I like Rob Zombie, and I explained to her two songs and what the meanings of these songs were, like the words. And she kind of looked at me like, "Why? Why do you?" And however, she listens to her music same way. Like, I don't get it, but to her, her music is everything. To me, my type of music is everything. When How do you get the person? And it's the same way in music. I'd probably ask the same question to a musician. How do you get that person to like your music rather than walking over there to that person's music? Because music is just like writing. There's tons of stuff, thousands of rock and roll songs that talk about love, and so thousands, like country music, thousands talk about breaking up. And if you play a country song backwards, by the way, folks, if you play it backwards, the people will get back together. Um, the How do you get that reader to want to look at that book? Your story versus the thousands of others that are next to it.
You gotta cross your fingers. It's the luck of the draw. You know what I mean? Like I said, you have to have something that's gonna grab that reader. And the first thing that reader is gonna see is that cover. If your cover doesn't stand out among the thousands of other covers that they're looking at, you're gonna get looked over. You know what I mean? And a good thing is word of mouth. I like to talk to my readers. I have friendships with a lot of them, and it's hard. But if it's something that you want to do, you can pluck it away at it.
Now, when you say you talk to them and everything, this is very important. You have a Facebook group. You have you're outgoing with your Facebook. You know, friendships and stuff with your readers. I got involved with you from one of the Facebook groups I belong to. The
Yes.
thousands I have, which I don't know how I've been a member of thousands, but all of a sudden I am. Um, what stands out amongst the readers, and how do you talk to them? I listeners of this, I sometimes wonder if I'm pleasing them, if I'm giving them good shows, if I'm giving them good material, if we're getting what they want. However, I found very early in this podcast, don't give your audience what they want. You take suggestions and do what you want. So the question is, how do you meet that standard of I'm going to give the readers what they want, but just like I'm going to give everybody what they want. However, this is my I'm the one that's in charge. How do you not lose the in your case reader base or customer base because you wanted to do something and they didn't like it?
In books, they won't buy them. you know. And that's the cut of the quick of it, really. If you don't have anything that they're not going to spend their 99 cents on, their $2.99 on, then you just get overlooked.
99 cents for your book? Wow, we can.
Some of them, depending on the count and stuff like that. Like the series, all of those books are, I think they're on $2.99.
Yeah.
But then they're on Kindle Unlimited too, so it's
Yeah, yeah. See, that's what I don't. That's what I probably wouldn't like with my book. I want it on the bookshelf. I want it in the bookstore. I want that person to read
and
it.
you can do that as well. Now that's something that I will probably do.
Have you
I
ever
want
gone?
to start with the ebooks first and then see what happens, but I do want to order books and and sell them.
Have you ever gone to any horror conventions or anything? Do it
I used to go to the horror conventions, but not as a writer. I never,
because
I was just doing
because
it.
there used to be somebody that came to our paranormal convention a lot, and they had a few books, and I was always wondering how much they really made off, but they would go home with the whole box empty. They sold all their books.
Oh, absolutely, that's the thing to do now. So that's
And there's a lot of the horror genre out there that's different. And for my listeners, what I'm saying is there's horror genres out there that are Halloween based. There's horror genres just based on murder and slaughter. There's horror conventions based on a lot of stuff. And I think you would be very successful at having a table if it's affordable. I mean, some of these tables go for $1,000 a space, um, but not the local conventions like I did, the paranormal stuff. I think the most I paid for a space was $dollars, but
but it will be what?
it would yeah well yeah if you're selling it would be. Sometimes complained about it. I don't like to complain about it, um, but for some a book like yourself, maybe the paranormal conventions, or if there's a psychic convention and you have your paranormal stories you did. Um, have you ever tried to do any of that? Have you ever wanted to do it? Or is some people just don't like to go to the public and sell their stuff, or go to the library and say, here's, a copy, can you put it up front?
My local library has like 3 or 4 books on the shelf.
Yeah. Well, our local library has local authors. Um,
Conventions, like you said. I really didn't think about just the paranormal aspects of it to get a table that way, but that's a really good idea. Thank you
yeah.
very much.
It helps a lot because of the simple fact is that you get that reader that doesn't know about it. You get the person that's not knowing what's going on out there. I don't know if the word is not knowing what's going on, but you're going to get the person that's might not want to go and look it up on Amazon. You might get the person that's in the horror that would say, "Oh, wow, look at that," and they scratch their head and think a minute, vampire novel, and they never knew about it because I never knew about this writer. Um, she's a comic book and writer, and she was very good at writing this story of a paranormal investigation type comic. Her husband did another story, and it was a great way to get there. Now, it probably has its downfalls. Like you take, a box of books or comics or whatever you're selling. In your case, your books, and you bring 25 there, and you take 20. What today? But at least you're out there. And a lot of people I call buy later. They go to the conventions and they take everything and they do this, and then they'll go online and buy all sorts of stuff next month. It's
Getting into public like that is really, really good. They have a inspirational romance convention every year in Daytona, Florida. I will go to that. that'll be a good way to, like you said, meet people who don't know who I am and end up, reading the book.
Yeah.
I would like to try and do that.
Now, here's something else. Is writing for an audience something that you do as well? In other words, if you know your audience, let's say Anne Rice or Stephen King, it, all of a sudden the audience don't like clowns and he changes it to a teddy bear. Maybe Anne Rice changes Lestat to all of a sudden he's no longer a Victorian guy. Now he's a cybernetic computer. Do you ever find that changing your stories for your readers is okay, or do you not? You stay with what they're used to, what you want.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. You cannot let your reader dictate your writing for you, and hopefully for them. But you write it for yourself first. It goes that way.
Now, with that as well, is there any time where you look and say, you know what, I'm just going to write it, I'm not going to write this anymore? You stop it and you do something completely different because nobody has gotten to it? Or do you continue to do it? I find a lot of times with my Dungeons and Dragons adventures, we can only go so far in them. You can only go so far in a fantasy role playing game before you say, it's time to make new characters, it's time to do a new story. Yes, you repeat it. Yes, it's the same thing. It's the same morals. It's the same. But you just scratch everything and redo it. New characters, new theme, new place, everything.
Each story has got to be like that.
Hmm.
Each story.
Okay. Let's real quick go ahead and www.iambrotherwade.com is my website. Our phone number, again, is 607-238-3816. We're checking in with the chat rooms. Let's do the Facebook chat room. We have Mary, we have Timothy, we have Frank, we have Jennifer. PJ is joining us today in our YouNow chat room. We have neglected some of these people, and I see some questions in here. We have Massey, and we have Wesley in there. Thank you for you guys coming in. What is the question here? I don't know if they're serious about this, but what style of vampire and write about? Now, I don't know if they're very serious about this question. This could be somebody fooling around, but it's something to discuss because we're on the topic of vampires. Is there a certain type or some like to write about versus something else?
I like to play around with different sorts of vampires. Like I do have called the Night Shift, and that's also with a vampire, and he was playful. The vampire story that I'm working on now, he's totally different. He's sullen. He's not a part of the hive anymore. And he's trying to almost live like a human. Not really, but just trying to refrain from all the death that he's seen over the centuries that he's been alive. A different vampire. They can't always be the same. They can't always turn into frogs or rats, or it's got to be something different.
Now, when now I have something on top of this. Um, when you write about vampires, and I find this very true with my own stuff that I do, is there ever a time when you say, you know what, screw it, I'm making my own stuff? I'm going to sit here and make something that no one's done. And I'm going to give you an example of it, of what I'm talking about. In Dungeons and Dragons, there's a monster called Whip Jelly. It is a slime that has tentacles on it, and I don't like the damage. I don't like how it's described. I don't like the fact that it can't move. I don't like the fact that it can't do anything intelligently. So I just remade the whole entire monster. I just remade it to everything that I thought it should be able to do. Is there any time that you have taken it and said, I'm going to stick to something that I want to do? It's not the norm for vampires, but
You
I'm
have
going to
to
do
try new
it.
things. You have to try new things.
Yeah.
You know, like I said, it can't always be the same. It gets boring. You know, just like I said when we were talking about Blade, I kind of like that spin on it, that he could go out. He had their thirst, but they envied him in a way. They wanted to be him. So that's something different. You know, nobody really wanted to be Lestat. Just him. So it's different. You have to put a spin on it. It has to be something different.
Now, how do you do that? How do you put a spin on something so people continually want to view you, get involved? I mean, if they're used to something and a spin's put on something, how do you keep them captivated to say this is a change and we're good with it?
Because readers don't always want to read the same thing over and over again. They want that difference. They want that spin.
Now, when you say they want the spin and they want to do stuff, what do the readers choose what they want, as in they tell you and you do it, or
No
is it
way.
you do it and they accept it?
Yeah, exactly.
Because with
That, that,
Dungeon,
that's what writing is. That's what every author does. From J.K. Rowling on down to Pity Pat McGee, you that's how it's done. You write it and you hope that the reader will read it. There's no guarantee that they're going to pick up your book, no matter what the cover looks like. You know, if you are writing the same characters with the same story and they all do the same thing, I mean, it's boring. Even to say it is boring. Who wants a boring 200-page book?
yeah.
You have to go out there. You have to branch out. You just have to. If you don't, then you're really not doing anything but wasting energy. And writers don't want to waste that energy. We wanna make books that entertain people.
Yeah. Now, have you ever said the story in the book was bad and you just redid it? Because I notice a lot of stuff I find in bookstores with the Dragonlance series sometimes, or Forgotten Realms, or the fantasy stuff that I read. I will see that a cover's changed, the story's somewhat changed, a character never appears again in the story. Where I remember the first edition when I first had it, back when I first bought the book, when it first came out, the character's in it, and now it's not. Um, I don't know if that would work, but have you ever got to that point where you said I'm changing everything, and you just did it and redid the whole thing?
I have, yes.
Now, is that good that you could do, or is that not?
No, I think if you can do it, do it. There are a lot of authors that are re-releasing some of their old catalog. And that's what they do. They put a new spin on it, they update the cover, and they can do that. I've done it. I want to do it with some of my old romance stories, but it takes. I got to be in the mood. I have to be in a certain mood to write in a certain genre, and right now I really like the horror.
Have you ever done anything else, or tried anything besides horror, fantasy, or otherwise?
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Like I said, I still do interracial romance novels. Even my dark fiction novels are interracial.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I do a lot of different things, but like I said, I like dark fiction. It's kind of like where my head is at. But I do write romance. I just finished an Egyptian book called Hatshepsut's Heir, so that's going to be pretty cool.
Now, a few people in our audience here of our chat rooms and stuff, folks, and don't forget you can go up to our chat room every week by going to my Facebook profile. You can go up here to younow.com. Some people are having trouble calling in. The number that you're going to call is 612-338-3816. Follow the prompt because everything's working, everything's here. If you're having a problem, send me an email and tell me what happened. Or even if you want, record yourself doing it so I know exactly what's wrong with it so I can fix it. A few people also in you now. Another question is, have you ever scrapped anything? Like everything was, I guess what they're trying to ask, and it's pretty interesting because I've heard of this happening, but I've never talked to somebody about it, is where everything is done. It's printed, it's out there, and then you're like, it's not going to work, and you're taking everything back. Have you ever done that?
No, not
No.
lately, no.
Now, another question is about Amazon. Is Amazon better than others? Now, I think what they're trying to talk about is their competitors here. Is there other avenues to do publishing besides Amazon?
Oh yeah, like if you want it, there are other avenues that you could totally take. I have some of my books up on spookyhauntedhouse.com. I think some of my books are there, and yeah. But when you go through Amazon, you can do so much through Amazon, though,
Hmm.
But it is better to have your books in other spots too. I
Yeah.
learned from past experience. You don't always put your eggs in one basket. Totally not. So the more places that you can have your books, the better it is for you.
Yeah. Now, again, let's shout out to some of the people that came in here. We have Michelle Phillips that just came in. We have some of the other people on you now who just came in.
Hi guys.
If you are on our streaming platforms here, the way to get recognized every week is to come every week and tell all your friends and stuff. Now, I don't know what's wrong with the phone lines. We've had some complaints now on you now. I don't know what's wrong with this phone line because it worked. Somebody just, as you saw me hitting the button, all I heard was echoing in the background, so I didn't even pick it up because I recognized the number it came in. If you're going to be, and if that is somebody who's trying to call in, um, be ready when I say it, but I recognize the phone number. Now, we're winding down the interview tonight, but one quick question and something we can discuss. How how do you get ideas to write about? Do you watch movies? Do you read another book and say it's okay? Do you do what I do, which is, I obviously play role playing games? Or is it just right off the top of your head? Somebody in you now asked how do I start? We discussed that earlier, but I want to elaborate on it. How do you get an idea of a story? What do you do with this idea? Like our caller earlier said, they write sentences, sentences come to them, they write ideas about their days. What should somebody do to put something together?
It's hard to speak for anyone else because I'm not
Uh,
sure where the drive is.
yeah,
People don't get into writing. At least I didn't get into writing to, like I said, become a millionaire because there's millions of people out there that say, "Hey, I can write a book," and that's what they do.
yeah,
And it may not be a good book. They're doing it. You know what I mean? So it's you got to find your own vibe for it. You know, if you have a story that needs to be told, just write it. Just write it. Don't try to, summarize it better. You know, almost like a synopsis. Write it out in stages. Because when I was working on the Dark World series, that's what I had to do, and that's the first time that I had to kind of like have a different document, just so I can remember the character, where they're at, and what they do, and what they look like. So you have to do that. When you have a story, just write it. I know it sounds easy to say that, but once you put it in your head what you want to have on paper, for me, it flows.
Yeah. Now, when you do this, and let's recap about the Amazon on how to do this. You and tell me if I'm wrong at any point here. You write your stuff. You got it all done. You write that story. You're done. How one do you find an editor? And then the second part is this: two, you go up on Amazon and download everything. Do they then send proofs? Do they then send you a copy of it in your hand? Because I would like, if I'm going to write something, I have a few ideas here and there. I would like it in my hand that I can physically read. But this generation is not like that. So, do you get it on the Kindle? Do you write it so it can be on that media?
For ebooks, but like I said earlier, I do want the print books. I wanted to just test the waters a little bit. You don't want to write something and immediately have it in print, because what if there are mistakes? What if you read yourself and you're like, man, that's horrible. I should not have done that. And then you want to recant everything, So I wanted to just see, because I just got back into writing, you guys. I've only been doing it for about a year. But everything is different, But I do want print books. Absolutely want print books. And once I have them in my hand, that'll be great.
Now,
you can do that again through Amazon, but like I said, I wouldn't automatically from one, just jump from, I'm going to publish this book and automatically get it in print. Because you have to pay for those copies, those copies are not free.
Yeah.
You have to pay for those. So, I wouldn't do that. And as for trying to find an editor, that's hard, because editing is expensive. Point blank, period. It's expensive.
Now somebody
you have to find somebody,
Yeah.
that you can trust.
Somebody here wants to know what an editor will do. That I guess this thing is editors are not needed. I don't know if the rest of the comments, I'm not going to read about this, but that brings up a good point that I haven't discussed here. So let's briefly discuss it. What do you look for in an editor going to do? And why, if all they're going to do is read over it, you wrote it, you know it's good, why can't you just go with it?
Because an editor does two things. They give you what is called a line by line. We can go over all of that. And then there's a content editor. And they are basically there to make sure your book flows from beginning to end. And if you can find that in one person, bravo, that's good for you. But like I said, trying to find an editor is not an easy task, because you really want to be able to trust somebody. I have heard stories of people having either a beta reader or an editor without a contract, and their stories were stolen. So you have to make sure that once you turn your work over to this person, that they're going to do you justice.
Now, what do you look for when you do this? Is there a secret formula that our
No,
listening?
there's no secret formula at all.
So just anybody, it's like looking for an accountant. You just hope they'll get you the deal.
Yeah, you have to, you got to do your research. Everything is totally about research.
Now, does Amazon edit it for you too?
No, no.
So I could just write a book, not edit it, don't care, and I could just have it done.
Yep.
Because I thought of doing something on my paranormal career of photos and other little stories and stuff. And obviously, with spell checker, and I also have somewhat of a reading problem. Um, uh, I imagine I could probably do well, but like you said, the context and flow of stuff, I, I don't know if I could have flow in it. Um, and I imagine flow and story intervals and stuff like a movie. If all of a sudden you're not captivated, you're gonna get up and say, "Whoa."
You're gonna put the book down.
Yeah.
You go watch TV for an hour. Yeah.
Well, some people do that. They put it down, watch TV, and then come back to it and finish it.
Absolutely.
My mom used to do that. Oh, Perot's on, Murder She Wrote's on, and then go back to her book and finish it in one day.
Absolutely. Yep. Absolutely.
Now, let's go over real quick. Again, how are we going to find your books? And tell everybody how to get them and what they can do to be able to enjoy your stories.
All of my books right now are available on Amazon. All you have to do is type in my name, Raven Starr, and you will get at least I think I have like 16, you guys. So it's a pretty healthy kind of like split. You can also find me on Facebook. I'm sorry, my face is starting to hurt. You can find me on Facebook. I do have my own author page, and that's Raven K Star on Facebook. But if you have any questions or you want to talk, you want to have anything, if I can help you, I will. Find me on Facebook and, I'll help you about it.
All right. Well, I don't want you to hurt no more. And another suggestion would be for the dentist is to put a tea bag in your mouth if you can take it. I've done it a few times and a couple times. Once you take the tea bag out and the whatever it does for your gums and your spot there, after it subsides itself, it's kind of worse than ibuprofen sometimes when that wears off. But thank you for coming on, and I hope you feel better with that. Um, and thank you for your work and your time today. And encourage people to go up and do it. I would love to have a physical copy of your new book when you get it out there. That title it captivates me in a way. Um, it I like stuff that deals with darkness and all that kind of, but I like the vampire genre.
Awesome. I
The
want to thank
vampire
you so
part of it.
much for inviting me on. I appreciate it.
Now, well, folks, my CWLAW RENCE01 at gmail.com, my website. We just went and we did some of the stuff. Go ahead and give me your opinions on it, folks. Nice opinions, not like you did last time, folks. www.iambrotherwade.com. And if you would like to, I can have a link for you, Raven, on my website. Just send me a little bit of information for you, and we'll put you down in the sponsors and other areas for where people can hook onto your links, like I have done for other people that have come on.
Okay, sounds great. Sounds great.
And I hope.
Thank you so much.
Yep. And as always, folks, I will see you next time.